Welcome, friends,
to the How To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear, that's why we're here.
We are your audio uncles, and with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Damn straight.
Showtime.
Well, here we are again, Uncle Mark. We're doing this thing. Although you're not here.
No, I'm.
Where are you?
Connected via technology from the city of Vancouver, Canada. So this is going to be our new normal for a little while. So if there's a little bump or a hiccup or a bug, please bear with us, friends. We're going to work it out.
And we'll sort all the technology out. If the tech's not perfect this time, expect it to be absolutely flawless next week. We'll see.
Exactly right. So we despite our remote nature and me being in the How To Heretic Studio North, I think we have a great show. We are going to welcome, or Dan has a saint that he's going to talk about, which is gruesome.
It's not Saint Grover, and it's not Saint Kermit.
Nope, and it's not Saint Big Bird.
But it is a saint.
That's right. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a fascinating phenomenon and an ongoing phenomenon, and one of the newer religions in the world that you're going to want to stick around for that.
Yeah, it's some weird ass shit. And then, luckily for us, we're rejoined by one Paige, who is going to guide us through dealing with death as a non-religious person. You know, one of the great comforts of religion is that you get fairy tales about what happens when you die.
Yep, but we don't have those.
We lack that luxury. So we'll have a great conversation with Paige about that.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the first, probably, of several segments about the how to deal with death and dying as a skeptic, as an atheist. So
yeah, if everybody isn't so depressed by the end that they commit suicide.
God, please no. So stick around.
Yeah, let's
do the show.
Let's move on. You know, Uncle Mark, here's the thing. Sometimes you and I, we like to introduce the people to the religions of the world.
Yes.
We like to meet the people.
Right. It's one of our favorite bits.
Yeah. It's a thing we do. So, and my understanding is that you have somebody to introduce us to.
I have a really fascinating group of people now. We have a giant master list of like all the segments we want to do, and this one I had forgotten about until a listener reminded me about these people. And this listener is going to get recognized a little later in the patrons section.
Oh wow!
But yeah. He has an interesting name, and his name is Who is John Frum? His Patreon name, and I was like, oh, John Frum. So that, of course, is a reference to a very interesting group of believers who still exist in small numbers out there.
Yeah.
And these are adherents of a phenomenon largely called cargo cults.
Oh.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you know about these guys, Dan, but
they're mostly it's baggage handlers at the airport, right?
That's right. Stevedores. It's stevedores and longshoremen are among the cargo cults. So, you're not far off. So the cargo cults are a phenomenon really of a very specific part of the world, which is kind of Melanesia, which is the island nations and the little island groupings that are very near Australia and New Guinea.
Okay.
So what Americans would call, would blanketly refer to as just kind of Polynesia. It's kind of part of that world. Yep. So a lot of people think that the cargo cults began during and after World War II. And they certainly got their turbocharging then But they actually started quite a bit before that in the 19th century when Dutch missionaries began the infiltration of these fairly uncontacted peoples. The small islands and the peoples of what used to be called the New Hebrides and what is still New Guinea had experience with white folks before. So Captain Cook had been to the island nation of Vanuatu, what became Vanuatu, in the 1770s. So they'd seen white assholes before,
right?
But that's mostly kind of the coastal regions, and deeper into the larger islands of New Guinea. Some of those people had never been contacted by white people before, the teens, 20s, and then the Second World War.
Right.
So these are people who had long been in these places. They had their own cosmology. They had their own mythologies and, creation myths and stories of the world that had things like a snake as kind of a tempter, that had stories of a second coming, a virgin birth. So when Dutch missionaries showed up in the 1880s-ish, 1870s and 1880s, they began trying to teach them about the Bible. There was some consanguinity. They're like, oh, okay, we get some of these stories, but then of course they began to add their own spin and their own twist.
How dare they?
How dare they? And in a total first ever, they decided, we don't like all these parts of the Bible. We only like these parts, right? Total first. Nobody's ever kind of edited or picked and chosen like that before. So,
No, that doesn't happen.
So, there is that Arthur C. Clarke's third law says that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So these were people that were living in essentially a Stone Age existence. They were, they certainly had advanced agriculture techniques. They had for their societies. They had extremely good navigation capabilities and sailing capabilities.
You're saying that they're noble savages. We get it. Fine, go on.
They're noble savages, but they were basically Stone Age people.
Yeah.
So even what the Dutch missionaries and then Australian kind of farmers and planters who began showing up, even the technology they had was dazzling. So that set up this idea that the white men were almost kind of had godlike status.
Yeah.
But what started to happen is the white men, you're not going to believe this either, in a total first, started behaving badly.
What?
Yes, and they started taking everybody's shit. I'm
outraged.
They were pushing this very pious Christianity on these locals, but then of course the locals were observing that the white people weren't so perfect at practicing this kind of piety. And then there was the horrible habit called blackbirding, which I guess is an Australian term for slavery, where they would take men from these villages, men and boys from these villages, and sometimes women, and just put them to work on plantations, and even take them to Australia, just completely dislocate them and force them to work.
Yeah.
So they began to really dislike the white people.
Weird.
Yeah, super weird, and it's on them. It's their it's their fault.
Right?
So
I can't take that on me.
So there became this myth that became very pervasive, that they're the god of a lot of the creator god of a lot of these societies, generally referred to as a god called Mansrin, would come back and reverse the order of the world. So he would come back and the white people would become black and the black people would become white.
Whoa.
And therefore they would it's not that the black people would gain power, it's that they would become white, therefore gaining power, right?
Well, that's the Mormons can get behind that one.
Yeah, it's again, religion and race, it's just a fascinating shitstorm every time. So flash forward to the massive mobilization of people and shit that was the World War II in the Pacific. And so the Japanese came first to these islands and occupied them. And the Japanese had, all their ships and all their planes and all their stuff. And so that made these people made the locals think that, oh, maybe this Mansurin thing has some validity to it. And what happens when they believe a lot of these cultures, when they have believed that this a god is returning or there's going to be some major tumult in the world, is they kind of destroy everything.
Oh,
and so they kill all their livestock and eat them. A lot of times they overturn all their taboos and just kind of throw everything out the window because it's all about to end. So they kind of saw the Japanese as the beginning of the end of the world.
So party time.
They weren't half wrong. Then the Americans came along and the Australians and chased the Japanese out of these islands. And the theory was the prophecy was kind of doubled down on, they believed, because they saw black troops living in quote unquote the same luxury as the white people.
Yeah.
So they saw black American troops, who they couldn't quite understand that our armies and navies were still segregated and there was not equality. And most of those black GIs would probably tell you they weren't exactly living in luxury, but compared to a Stone Age subsistence, hunter-gatherer, shit looked pretty good.
Sure.
So they were like, oh my God, it's happening. This equality is finally going to take place. So they got, there's also this idea of the big man, quote unquote, the big man, which is part of the political system of a lot of these island nations. And the big man just means
Shaquille O'Neal.
There's one guy, Andre the Giant. There's one guy who gives out more stuff, who is more generous.
It's Santa.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, you end up, and so this was like whoever the quote-unquote wealthiest guy in your society was, who just give out lots of gifts and largesse and food, etc. But in so doing, he was kind of socially and culturally indebting you.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people were like, the cargo cult thing has to be kind of talked about with an eye towards horrible colonial attitudes, right? It is, cargo cult can be kind of a racist. It does have kind of a racist connotation when you presume, which people did forever, that it was simply about these, benighted savages wanting more stuff.
Right.
Whereas the kind of more modern thinking attributes a lot of the behavior to the big man idea, which is, well, the Americans showed up and kind of culturally, without realizing they were doing it, kind of culturally became the big man. And just kind of all these, at the low end of that totem pole, big man is at the top and rubbish man is at the bottom. Is there,
that sounds about right.
Their term for the guy who's kind of the most indebted, who has nothing to contribute and nothing to give. So
me, you're talking about me.
I'm talking about Uncle Doug. So, unfortunately, the locals ended up feeling kind of like the rubbish men.
Oh.
So there certainly is a side of it where, if you're a hunter gatherer and your most prized possession is a stone axe, and then you end up with a Jeep, that's pretty awesome. Right?
Yeah.
That's a massive life change. So, the Americans, unlike the Japanese, tended to treat the locals better and paid them to do work and then just gave them all kinds of shit. So they gave them Spam, which somebody gave an American guy Spam, you'd punch him in the face and say, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you give me Spam?
Hey, you know what? Spam is the American canned meat of choice.
As a white trash Mormon, boy, let me tell you, I grew up with some Spam. But anyway, they gave them Spam, they gave them Coca-Cola, they gave them chocolate, they gave them boots and just all kinds of stuff that they had never, ever seen before. So that what started to develop was not only, hey, we love all this shit, we love chainsaws and we love rifles, but because of their understanding of the world, they didn't understand, they had no concept of manufacturing and where this stuff came from, and that there were giant factories with huge supply chains and resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And people operating it all.
Right. And it was just a huge effort to make, to bring a Jeep to your island. Many thousands of hands were involved in this effort.
Right.
So because they had no concept of how that was done in America, they thought that these were of spiritual origin. And then they began to think that they were really meant for them, and that somehow the white men had interdicted the gifts from the ancestors of the island people, and from their spirits, and again, because they used originally worship white men as gods, and then saw their flaws. They saw that they were irreligious. They saw that they were drunk, that they were cruel, and then the Japanese were the most powerful thing they'd ever seen. So they're like, okay, well, these guys are clearly the top of this pyramid. And then the Americans beat the Japanese. They're like, wow, this is super confusing. Maybe they aren't benevolent. Maybe they aren't, maybe the white man is they're just men. They've intercepted our shit. So it's a pretty complex origin.
Yeah.
What I think is so fascinating about the cargo cult for people that are interested in religion is that we really, in the past century, we saw the birth of a religious idea, right? And we saw how when two cultures come into contact, which has been happening since the dawn of time, right?
Right.
That tribe A meets tribe B, and if they don't fully wipe each other out, they synthesize somehow, right?
Sure.
And so this is a great...
And not always in a way that makes any kind of sense at all.
No, not always, but I don't know. I mean, if you think of the perspective of a fully developed yet Stone Age society, or
right.
fully intellectually developed yet Stone Age society, like basically the idea that in many ways your culture and your technology kind of grows to fill the need.
Right.
So if you come from a place that is fairly abundant with food and fish, and you can sustain yourself fairly easily, maybe there's no need to develop technologically beyond that.
Sure.
Especially if you're super isolated and there hasn't been a lot of a lot of war, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. It's interesting to think that these quote unquote very technologically advanced societies showed up and came in contact with these people who were less so. And the islanders basically used what tools they had at their disposal, meaning their own creation myths, their own stories, their own traditions, to make sense of it. And
right,
what else do they have to work with?
I'm put in mind of one particular cargo cult in Vanuatu. I'm sure you know about it, and maybe you were getting to it, but this is one of the Yaonanan tribe. I don't know how to pronounce that. Do you know of the Prince Philip movement?
I do.
I just think that this is my favorite of the cargo cults, because I'm watching The Crown right now. It's a great show, and Prince Philip is
an asshole.
Is a douchebag on at least in seasons 1 and 2.
Yes, well, and he is currently and has always been. So I'm sure somewhere in the world he's glad that somebody likes him.
But yeah, there's a whole tribe of people who think that he is a divine being because they had a creation myth, or a religious myth of a man who was going to be married to a very powerful woman. And, they put the pieces together and realized, oh, it's Prince Philip. And so there's a whole group of people who are just like sort of worshiping that dude.
Isn't that amazing? And of course it could only be people who don't actually know him.
Right. Well, I think we look at that and go, that's ridiculous, because obviously we know that he's just a silly man with a silly history, but it just goes to show, like, when you clash religious mythology into reality too hard, big ears take the day.
Except tall and big ears. So what do cargo cults look like? I mean, what's crazy is they maintain, right? Their numbers are way down from where they used to be, but there still exists cargo cults, mostly in the nation of Vanuatu, which is a kind of a big island archipelago. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
So what they look like these days is they practice something that's called sympathetic magic or magical correspondence. And what those mean, that's like magical correspondence is like a voodoo doll kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they build fairly elaborate planes out of bamboo and kind of indigenous materials that they have, and they weave mats to fill in the wings and the sides. They make control towers. They make radar-looking installations. All out of kind of bamboo and grass and stuff like that.
Sure.
Because the idea that like conjures like. So what they want is for partially the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, but mostly they want a guy named John Frum to return.
Right.
So and John Frum is spelled F-R-U-M, but the thought is that it was John from America. Right. So they have this kind of messianic figure who is an American officer of some kind. And there's actually been scholarship into trying to figure out if this was a real single person or if he's just kind of symbolic of, the Navy officers and the abundance and the technological mastery that they kind of represent. Right.
Right.
So there is on February 15th every year is John Frum Day. And there are they march and drill with bamboo things that look like rifles. They have kind of ad hoc uniforms they've made. They man the control tower and the radar facility, in which they have. I mean, I'm trying to not be a cultural white guy colonist about this, but there is this kind of wonderful Gilligan's Islandness to it.
Yeah, it feels very like what my buddies and I did when we were 8.
Yeah. And so they have like headphones made of coconuts and binoculars made out of bamboo and stuff. And it looks kind of silly, but again, it is this idea of magical correspondence that they're wishing the ships to come back, they're wishing the planes to come back. And I guess it's a minor tribute to our American GIs in World War II that despite the stresses of fighting the Japanese, they were actually decent to the locals to such a degree that they're now kind of worshipped.
Yeah.
So chocolate and Coca-Cola go a long way. So they're still out there. They still exist. It's actually possible to go visit some of these villages in Vanuatu and see the culture of the cargo cults. And I think that it's a weirdly wonderful thing. And I also think, again, it's a great examination for anybody who's interested in how ideas form and religious ideas form. We kind of saw it happen in real time. Yeah. And it's still ongoing.
Wow. That is it's all very frankly, all religion strains credulity.
Yes.
But when you start to use your bamboo binoculars, you got to start asking some questions. That's all I'm saying.
It's fun. Anyway, that's the cargo cults.
There they are. All right.
I'm sorry we missed John Frum Day this year on the podcast, but next year I promise we will celebrate it.
We'll celebrate it. Sure.
All right. Let's move on.
Let's do it.
Well, Dan.
Yes, sir.
We all need a patron. We all need someone to watch over us.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I don't know how you could get along without it.
So I think today you have selected a saint that will be the patron of this week's podcast. Is that correct?
Here's what I'll say. I can see a new horizon underneath the blazing sky. I'll be where the eagle's flying higher and higher. I don't think you're ready for this, because I told you we were talking about Saint Erasmus, also known as Saint Elmo's Fire.
Oh, what?
We're diving into Saint Elmo, baby.
St. Elmo's Fire. Wow. So for anybody over 40, you got that.
Yeah, exactly. That was just for the brat packers out there.
Yeah.
The people who
good times.
Who remember the 80s.
Back when our teen and early 20 actors were all on the cocaine.
Yeah.
Unlike now.
Unlike now when nobody does drugs anymore.
That's right.
So yes.
Clean fun.
There was a movie called St. Elmo's Fire. There was a song called St. Elmo's Fire. But
that was actually in the movie, if you can believe it.
Yes, indeed, it's true. St. Elmo, also known as St. Erasmus of Formia, he was a martyr of the church.
Yes,
a 3rd century fella.
Yes,
I'm looking at an image of him that was created.
Is he on fire?
No. Although he was set on fire as a person. Strangely, this image of him it's from 1530. This is, if you go to the Erasmus of Formia Wikipedia page, it's the main image you see, and he's holding a thing in his hand. I'll get to it. Okay. It looks like a long sort of iron rod with something wound around it. Mm-hmm. And he's holding it, and he's totally side-eyeing somebody. He's got that side eye going on, and a not happy, an unhappy look on his face for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the picture now, and he looks well armed. It looks like, and you're right, it's major side eye. He looks like Schwarzenegger in some movie before he's about to just throw down, right?
Yeah, well, he's holding a staff in one hand and this weird sort of iron spit with something wound around it.
A licorice rotisserie.
When I tell you what it is that's wrapped around that spit, you're going to be a little confused about the image itself.
All right.
The thing that's wrapped around that spit is his own intestines.
Oh dear God.
Which doesn't make any sense when he's fully clothed and just standing there holding it.
He does not look comfortable. That might be part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. When one is holding one's own intestines on a spit. Yeah, you're not going to be the happiest guy.
No.
So this is a guy who, it's one of those. It's a tale as old as time. He was a Christian evangelist. He went around giving the good word about Jesus,
bothering people. He
was bothering people.
Yeah,
and one of the people he was bothering the most. Was Maximilian, the emperor.
Yeah. So if history's taught us anything, it's don't bother Roman emperors.
It's a bad idea.
Don't even get noticed by them.
Yeah, exactly.
Just fucking go under the radar until the Enlightenment, if you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm pronouncing it wrong. Maximian is the guy that we're talking about. I'm saying it wrong.
I hear
you. The guy after Diocletian. Obviously, we all know this.
Post Diocletian. We're not telling anybody anything they don't know.
Right. And
just us.
Maximian, who, according to a guy named Varang. I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to say that either. Was, quote, much worse than Diocletian. So if that gives you any sense. Anyway.
Sure.
Right. So Maximian orders the arrest of Erasmus / Elmo. I'm going to call him Elmo because it feels Muppetier. Anyway.
It's very much Muppetier. And he probably ended up being just as red.
Yes, indeed. Maximian was not happy about Elmo's continued faith in his Jesusness, and they forced him to go to an idol temple. But along the way, apparently all the idols fell down and were destroyed.
Oh no!
Because of God's magic.
Okay.
And so this pissed off the emperor so much that he decided, let's torture Elmo. And frankly, if you've heard Elmo's voice, you've wanted to torture him too.
The torture me Elmo. So, so the idols we're talking, because we all know that the idol worship, etc., is forbidden in at least the first 3 commandments.
Right.
So these were probably of Roman.
These were who you're supposed to worship if you were a good Roman, apparently.
Your Zeus's, your etc.
Yeah, you're whatever,
yes.
what have you? You're various and sundry.
But why did Erasmus get blamed for all the idols falling down?
Shut up. That's why.
Because that's just how emperors do their shit.
Right. Exactly. Well,
that's just how you emperor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and because he was the one walking along, they're marching him to this temple, and along the way, he's just busting idols left and right.
Okay.
Because I think he was spitting fat rhymes, is what he was doing.
Is that what he was doing?
And he was just busting suckers. Anywho,
I would love to hear period Latin hip hop. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. Hippus hoppum, I think is what it's called.
Conjugating hip ad hoc hoppum. Conjugating those complex verbs like freestyle, that's amazing.
It's really, when you hear good Latin hip hop, it really does blow your mind.
It really is terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Lin-Manuel Miranda's. We'll see what you can come up with.
Yes, Mirandamus.
And anyway, so he's going to be tortured, Elmo is. And the first thing that is done, apparently, is that he's shut into a barrel full of spikes, like inward-facing spikes. And then
that's a classic tool.
Yeah, I think Bugs Bunny had one of these. And they rolled him down a hill in the spike barrel.
Right.
Which doesn't sound pleasant, but apparently he was healed from this.
It's a process called aeration.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It makes the grass greener.
It encourages growth.
And
so he survived it. He survived that.
Yeah, he did just fine. Which, let me tell you something. Here's another quick life hack. If a Roman emperor decides to torture you, stay tortured. Don't recover, because
don't heal.
He's just going to do it again and make it worse.
Yeah, if you've ever been in a fight and the guy tells you to stay down, that's when you stay down.
Yeah, exactly. So he was beaten, he was whipped, he was coated with pitch and set alight.
Jesus.
Now you might think that's what St. Elmo's fire is. You're wrong. So don't think that, dummy.
Okay, I'm excited to know that there's more fire.
Yeah. That's not the fire. Okay. Still, he survived, which, again, this is not the way to do this. If you keep surviving, you're just asking for more.
That was called St. Elmo's Braise. That was just to get a nice brown.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, right. And everybody loves a nice... You want your saint medium rare, but crispy on the outside.
Right.
So anyway, they eventually they just throw him into prison, intending to let him die of starvation. But he manages to escape.
God, this guy.
So I mean that's good, but they recapture him eventually, and more torture happens and all kinds of stuff. So
this guy's pretty hard.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually, the final thing is that he is his belly is slit open, and his intestines wound around a windlass, which is a sort of a spit thing.
Oh, and
that's where you get that red vines thing that you can see in the picture there.
Yeah, the licorice spit. That is, and again, it's no wonder he looks a little bit miffed in his fresco.
Yeah, he looks uncomfortable.
He looks very uncomfortable.
He looks a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say, having your own intestines wrapped around a thing, you'd think it would mean something more than just the fact that he is the patron saint of ouchy tummies.
Well, listen, I've worked in wood shops and things like that all my life, and they always say, if you lop off a little bit of your finger or whatever, grab it, get it on ice.
Yeah.
And then get to the emergency room.
And then wind it around a windlass.
Clearly, he's in this picture, he's waiting for the bus so he can get to the ER and have it wound back into his tummy. Jesus.
Yeah.
God, Catholicism is so crazy.
So he's the patron saint of slightly ill at ease bellies, abdominal pain, and because the thing that they used to wrap his thing up is a sailing thing. A windlass is a sailing windy thing.
You see those guys on the sailboats going.
He's also the patron saint of sailors.
Oh Jesus, that's so fucked up.
Yeah, and actually, that's where we get the St. Elmo's fire thing. Strangely, nothing to do with anything that happened to St. Elmo in his life. It was actually just when sailors in a lightning storm, an electrical storm, they would look up and see sort of a little bit of lightning dancing off the top of the masts, and that they took to be St. Elmo. Offering them protection, which they should have taken that to be like, holy shit, there's lightning on our boat. But instead they went with that and they called it St. Elmo's Fire, and they thought that was St. Elmo protecting them.
And then there's an 80s Rat Pack movie with a hit single made from that.
Yeah.
You know what? All human civilization makes is sense.
It's so true.
Makes sense.
It's so true. And yeah, if you want a treat involving Judd Nelson and Demi Moore, you can find the movie that I've never seen.
Wasn't Iron Man in that too? Wasn't
probably.
The whole gang was. It's like either that or Less Than Zero. I can't remember.
They're the same, right?
They're all the same. So. Well, wow, that is a saint that requires some intestinal fortitude.
Yeah,
and
maybe he saves you from intestinal issues.
Yes, so now you know to whom to pray when you have a stomach ache and your ship gets hit by lightning. I guess. So nicely done.
Perfect.
Nicely done, Saint Erasmus of Elmo.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
All right, moving on. Well, Uncle Dan. Week after week, measure upon measure, however that works. I don't know how it works. People continue to tune in, to listen to the good news.
Yeah.
And occasionally to throw a few shekels in the old whatever.
In the kitty.
Yeah.
And what we're doing here actually costs us money, and people are willing to be a part of making it happen. And not only that, but they get access to the show. They get the early version of the show, and so that's good for them, and it's good for us. And we've got some folks to thank.
Let's do it. Let's thank them.
So this week we're giving awesome thanks to Michael, to Mitten, to Lori,
yes,
Melanie, Vanessa, and Dean.
Yeah.
And then, and you know what? We had somebody make an adjustment, and they're now Julie's now a $5 patron. I'm going to give her a quick saint. I'm going to saint her up.
Oh, yes. We need a saint for Julie.
So
what are you feeling?
Julie,
what do you sense in the ether?
Your patron saint is that of Saint Fred of Abernathy. And Saint Fred is the patron saint of stylish chairs and comb overs.
Yes. Oh, what a time this saint is having these days.
It's a good time to be alive, and that's what Julie gets. But we have
Fred of Abernathy.
Yes, indeed. But we have one other giver. He was mentioned before. Who is John Frum?
Yes.
Which, to me, actually, it should be Where is John Frum? Because that's funnier. But
who's on Vanuatu? It's that classic comedy piece.
the old Laurel and Hardy. No, the old Abbott and Costello routine.
Yes.
Anyway, John Frum, who is John Frum, is giving at such a level that that he gets to go to heaven. And
that's right.
And I believe you have something prepared for us.
I certainly do. And John Frum, thank you very much, not only for your incredibly generous patronage, but for helping remind me of the amazing phenomenon of the cargo cults.
Yeah.
That we explored in this show. So, John Frum, what is your heaven? Your heaven is the meadow.
Oh, that's
the dissipating heat. Oh yes, it's beautiful. Well, it's a heaven. The dissipating heat of late August welcomes September with a lover's afterglow. You awaken with eyes skyward. The bright, radiant blue of the midday sky has reclined into the languid azure of late afternoon, early evening. In this sudden, dizzying awareness, a faint star calls out of the velvety sky. Inhale, and your lungs fill with the deep damp of the world between the black soil and the tops of the wild honeysuckle. Life, so recently lost, pours into your being along with youth, health, the zap of fireflies, and the cool wind that blows across the landscape before a late summer thunderstorm. Sap spreads through limbs forgotten, and every bloom of clover, every blade of wild green grass, every soft, quiet journey of the pulsing earthworms beneath you sings through your skin and bones. The world is alive, and so are you, who is John Frum. You want to lay there and luxuriate in the earthly richness and sensual overload of this rebirth, but you can't.
Oh.
Your reverie is shattered by hands thrusting down to you through the canopy of flowering brambles and the sleepy figure eights of lazy bumblebees. A beautiful girl, 20 at most, wildflowers woven into her strawberry blonde hair, wearing a gossamer linen peasant blouse and clearly unencumbered by a bra, beams at you excitedly as she grasps for your hand. Beside her, a languidly beautiful 20-year-old boy of Caribbean extraction extends his willowy hand to you as well. His perfect teeth dazzle you, as do the wildflowers woven into his raven hair. His sheer linen shirt reveals a total lack of a brassiere of any kind. You can't but help take their hands, and you're pulled dizzily to your feet. As you grapple with your disorienting new uprightness, an elfin lad of 16 bounds past you, gleefully thrashing a flamenco melody out on his guitar, with an equally comely companion, a Moroccan girl, spinning and marking time perfectly on a tambourine over her head, streaming with a swirl of bright ribbons. The tissuey nature of their linen tops reveal an aversion to supporting undergarments. Sensing your dislocation, your new friends embrace you hurriedly, then turn and begin to follow the growing number of fecund youth gamboling past in the magical evening. They reach back, beckoning. What can you do, who is John Frum? You follow them lustily, grabbing their offered hands and running in confused ecstasy through the morning glories and the watercress and the dandelions. Behind you, more girls and boys run and leap through the verdant meadows, through the silver aspen stands, and then again through the fragrant pines, where the cool awakens the senses more so than even before, only to pass from under their ancient boughs back into the sun-kissed basins of wildflowers and deep green brush. As you run, the laughter of your beautiful companions adds to the symphony of sounds your senses are doing their best to feast on. Looking around, you see the perfected children of earth, every race and culture of man running through this Eden. Irish boys in peasant blouses play bodrans. Chinese girls leap through the fields playing the single-string eru. An Australian child somehow manages to play the didgeridoo while sprinting past everyone else. You can't help but notice the liberating quality of the lack of bras on any of these young people. On Earth, this musical cacophony would be horrendous, but here it somehow works. It's electrifying. Your guard down, your legs and heart pumping. You, who is John Frum, open your heart and you laugh, a little at first and then with abandon. The intoxication of all five senses being overfilled at once is too much. The beauty of this place, of the evening, of the people around you is just too much. You run and you run. Your peasant blouse, wet from the dew of the meadow, reveals your taut, youthful frame and dark nipples. Unembarrassed by this obvious lack of a bra, for the first time in your life, you laugh exuberantly. The fireflies sparkle in the delicious evening around you and your friends. Who has time to learn anyone's name in this mad rush toward someplace? The setting sun tastes of honey and green tea. And who knew that camera flares could be experienced without a camera? Still running, still in the presence of so much youthful exuberance and beauty, you wonder for a moment where you're running to. Unlike your earthly life, you feel you could run and run and run forever. And while that seems wonderful, you thirst for the destination, who is John Frum. but one look into the laughing glacier blue eyes of your female companion, and then into the smoldering coffee brown eyes of your male companion, as they look past your face into your very soul, and you don't care at all where you're going, as long as you just continue to go through meadow after meadow. And so you run for an hour, and then for a day, and after that, who is John Frum? You run for a week, and then weeks, and then months. Blocks of months become years, which become decades, which become centuries. And centuries become millennia that are measured in the millions. Those millions are added into columns of millions more, all part of the meaningless metric of time in the literal eternity you have earned, who is John Frum, dashing through the verdant forever of the meadow, a heaven from which there is no respite and no escape. Enjoy, John. It's really terrific.
At least there's no bras.
Yeah, it's a very specific, it's no bra heaven.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of like 1969 the whole time. So enjoy that.
I love it. I love it. Congratulations, who is John Frum. You are, what a lucky man / person / whatever you are that you turned out to be.
And I hope you've got great tits. So if you want to become a patron, you can go to the How to Heretic website.
Yeah.
And just click on the Patreon link and it'll take you there, and throw everything you can afford into that thing, and you'll get a heaven of your own forever.
It's an amazing thing. So, yes, thank you all so much. We really appreciate you. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Well, Uncle Dan. Everything dies.
What?
Everything dies.
All that lives must die.
All that lives must die, and all of us may one day die.
I mean, I assume not me.
No, you'll be fine.
Okay.
But what do we do when people die? What happens?
You know what? I'm the wrong guy to ask. So I brought in the big guns.
Yeah?
Yeah. We got Paige here in studio with us to help us talk this through. How's it going, Paige?
Things are good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here. Because this is some heavy duty shit.
It's kind of a light topic, I think.
So we brought you in on here to talk about one of the trickiest things about leaving religion, which is when folks die and we stay alive. If I die, I got no problems. But if somebody that I love dies, not being religious anymore, I don't have any of the old comforts, the old ways of dealing with it.
It's true. They become seriously dead.
Yeah, like for real and shit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have to just deal with that.
Yeah, there's no myth to protect you. There's no magical stories. There's really just, this is seriously dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one.
Have you been with anybody who's died?
Like been there as they've died?
Yeah.
I was in the room when my aunt died.
What was it like?
Well, she was already she was unconscious, so it was just from one state of unconsciousness to another.
Mm-hmm. Subtle.
It was gentle, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be.
But I imagine that there are times when it's not.
There's times when it's far from that, yeah. There's all kinds of deaths, yeah. It's true.
This is the most requested, I think, by our listeners. One of the most requested topics to try to cover is how to manage and deal with the death of somebody in your sphere when you are not a believer, right?
Yeah.
And one of the first things that we could go to, and I remember this from when my dad died. When my dad died, of course, I'm not a believer, and he was, and many of the people around him were believers.
Right.
And I had to deal with those people. A whole bunch of people who just expected things to go a certain way, and expected my mourning to look a specific way, and I had to deal with all of these people in a crisis moment.
Yeah. So how was it supposed to go?
Well, I think I was supposed to have lots of prayer, and then I think we were supposed to talk a lot about him being in a better place, and talk a lot about how I'll see him again. That's that's a big Mormon thing,
right?
How I'll be with him forever, and
he's just passed through the veil.
Yeah, he's just waiting on the other side for me. We're all going to be one big happy family again.
Right.
We weren't one before. No, that's a joke. We were fine. It just seemed like they had, and I definitely wasn't supposed to cremate him. I made a big mistake there. I got confronted about that at the funeral.
Really?
So that's kind of cute.
So he was going to be using that body.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that his death was caused by fire didn't seem to have any effect on that point.
Yeah.
So anyway, any thoughts about that? About dealing with believers, about dealing with family members who want you to grieve their way, or who don't approve of how you're dealing with things?
Well, it's no time to change anybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a time when religion actually really works emotionally for people. I mean, it's one of the times when religion is potentially, at least, profoundly comforting. It has myths and stories that offer comfort, like, well, this is just a brief separation, and he's on the other side waiting for us, and others have welcomed him to the other side. And that's incredibly comforting. I don't want to take away people's stories if they're comforting. If that's where that's none of my business.
It does seem like that, like just as it was a dick time for people to confront me about my non-belief, it would be equally a dick time for me to confront them.
Right. So really, I'm not terribly concerned about other people's experience in terms of changing ideas or minds. That's one of the times when religion really works pretty well for many people, not all people. My grandfather, when he was dying, he was terrified that he had not lived a worthy life so that he could be with his wife.
Oh, shit.
You know, this man was an orphan at about 8 years of age, whose only other relationship was with his sister, who was slightly older, and she dies suddenly walking home from school one day.
Oh, no.
And I'm not kidding you, at 12 years of age, this man is on his own. He gets on a horse because he's tired of being whipped with a bullwhip by his relatives and foster parents. That's a true story. And he got on a horse and he rode off.
Oh, my God.
I mean, he lived an amazing life, and he was an extraordinary man. And here he is dying after all of that, and his thought is, I don't know that I've lived a life worthy enough to be with my woman.
Huh.
So for him, facing death in his 90s was terrifying.
Wow.
And I remember my mom sitting with him because he was really unnerved and he had a certain amount of dementia. And, she says, what is it that you fear? And then when he told the story, they had a conversation. And, you know, she's a devout Mormon, but, you know, she also studied Lao Tzu and Buddha and, you know, Freud and Jung and all that stuff. She was a psychotherapist. And at the end of it, he brightened. Because what had lifted for him was the fear of unworthiness. That somehow it was like it was going to be okay. That he could just relax into this experience and would have its own way with him. Well, that's a very different way of going. So, you know, religion could be incredibly comforting. It can be absolutely terrifying at the moment of death. People can fear what some of the painted afterlives are like, and they're be full of judgment and fear and all that. So it can be full of tension, or it can be comforting. And if it's working, it's not a time to try to fix something.
Right.
I think you walked into the wrong podcast studio.
Yeah, if you want to be an evangelical, if you want to be an evangelical heretic at a funeral home, I think you're going to be very unpopular. You know.
It's when people are vulnerable and hurting that you've got to get in there.
There's the opening.
If we've learned anything from the religious, it's that.
Yeah, sure.
Get them while they're feeling awful.
Sure, right. There's your opening.
Exactly right. And it's funny because the religious actually do that. You know, when they decide to intrude into people's hospital rooms and insist on administering things like last rites. Yeah. Oftentimes, even when people have requested it not happen.
Oh, yeah.
So are you saying we take the opposite lesson from suffering and pain and human tragedy and not be dicks about it?
Well, you know, Dan and I were talking before the podcast. We're talking about relaxing. You know, relaxing into life. Really just relaxing into our own gifts instead of living in tension. And, you know, when people are dying, it's hard not to be in tension. There's so much going on. And just to be able to relax and receive people in that moment and to be able to have your own experience, because everybody's experience with death is different. Death hasn't been a stranger in my life. I can't imagine that it's a stranger in most people's lives, although I've met some people who say things like, no one in my family has ever died.
Oh.
Which is an extraordinary claim, by the way.
Yeah, that strikes me as...
short-sighted?
Improbable?
Yeah,
I don't know.
But what they mean is
unless
that I still have
to the three Nephites.
Yeah, there you go.
True.
Well, they haven't had their grandparents die.
Right.
They haven't faced death of children or siblings and so forth. And my thought is always, oh boy, because that's a streak that can't keep up. Everyone's going to face death. It's one of those things, and how you go about doing it is pretty profound, and relaxing into it is really a struggle for most of us.
Yeah.
Just to be able to be present with people as they're dying.
I imagine it would surprise people to even hear that you're that it would be a good thing to relax.
Or that it's even an option.
Right.
I mean, how to get away, how to get out of the way and to be a part of things, to relax into something. When my mother was dying, she was 92 and had been really, really healthy. And then all of a sudden it became clear, I couldn't get her on the phone, and rushed over there, and I went, I think she's about done. And her mother had just died in her sleep one night. And, my mother had always thought that would be the way to go. So in 24 hours, she goes from being really pretty healthy to being dead. And so I'm laying on her bed, and we're chatting. We got her to the bed, and she says, you should just go home and get some rest, and we'll just talk tomorrow. And I said, Mom, I don't think you understand. I don't think you're going to be here tomorrow. So let's talk about how you want to do this. And we had the greatest conversation. I'm relaxed on the bed, and she's laying there, and here's this woman who's been a part of my life since before I was born.
Yeah.
And we got to say goodbye in this relaxed, absolutely loving way. And granted, she's 92. It wasn't like the violent deaths that I or others have had to live with, but the relaxing into it was extraordinary. It was really like, okay, well, let's accept this. And how do we want to go about that? And some people's religious ideas give, comfort and aid for that support. For me, it was just about, well, how do you want to do this? You're only going to do this one time.
Yeah.
How do you want to do it? And so it's strange, but not having a belief system of an afterlife actually supported that.
Huh.
I just don't have any assumption that there's something you're going to. So the question really was, how do you want to do this? And whatever her thoughts were about it, because she did believe in an afterlife, they were welcome with me. They're utterly welcome with me. And so we would just talk and we would hang out. And I got to say goodbye to my mom in this amazing way. And then the next day, she had died in between when I left her place and in the morning. And I called my kids and said, Grammy is gone. Would you like to come and spend some time with her? And so they're on their way, and I took her and I put her in her reclining chair, which was where she sat every time they came. And moving a body that has no person in it is an extraordinary thing. I admire these people who gather bodies up because they do it artfully. But when someone is dead, they are seriously dead.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to be with a person who you have loved and who is gone. And I move her and I'm positioning, and I think, wow, she's seriously dead. And I didn't have any sense that she was hovering, that she was, on another side. It was really just, okay, I want my children to be able to say goodbye. So she's sitting in there as natural as she had been for a very long time. And my children come and they sit with her. And I'm laying on the bed when they walk in the door next to my mom, her recliners in the room. And I said, well, here's Grammy. What's on your mind? And they sat with her in this unbelievably relaxed way. I was dumbfounded by their grace, to be honest with you. And they just sat there and they chatted for over an hour with Grammy, who was seriously dead. And they held her hand and they said goodbye. And we're a group of atheists. My kids don't have strong beliefs in an afterlife. They tend to be atheists or agnostic and so forth. They said goodbye to a woman that they sat with for over an hour who had left.
Yeah.
She was seriously dead. That was the best ritual I have been involved with.
Oh.
Their saying goodbye was so profound to me, and it was so relaxed. And my own goodbye with her was so relaxed. It was just like, okay, this is here. And granted, we'd had 92 years. She had had 92 years, and I'd had, almost 60 years with her. But it was this ritual. And I got to tell you, rituals can be absent in the lives of atheists. And rituals can be profound. How do you want to go through an experience? Does it have a preconceived ritual process? Does it have a one that arises out of a relaxed body in relationship with a person who is dying or died? And if you have the luxury of time, you can contemplate that. Yeah. How do I want to do this thing? How do I want to face death? And so often death is cruel and it comes suddenly and violently. And, people who've been through that, there's no time for preparation. So you got to ask yourself, well, how do I want to do it? And I've invented my own rituals. And I grew up Mormon, and Mormons like to pride themselves on not having rituals. And then they have rituals in their temples. But it's really interesting. I had to invent my own rituals for these things. And in that moment, my kids invented their own. And we just sat and said goodbye in, I think, the most profound and perfect way that could have been scripted. Honestly, I think it was the absence of a belief that made that possible. It was just relationship. And so how do you want to do it is an interesting question to me when you don't have a profound testimony of an afterlife.
Right.
You want to think about it in advance. You're going to get surprised in this life because death comes violently and suddenly in times. And then it comes slowly at other times, and you see it coming. But when it's there, it always seems a bit abrupt.
It's never, yeah. Even the gentlest death is still a surprise, a shock to the system.
It's really true. And even when it's a long time coming and there can be relief involved in it, it's still, it has its own quality. So how do you relax into one of the absolutely democratic experiences of life?
It's an interesting point you make about your lack of belief system creating an entirely different space. And maybe that's good advice for listeners and people who are going through this is, if you're from a religious family and everybody isn't, surrounding the person dying or who's ill is from a certain tradition, right. You may be, if you're an atheist or a non-believer, you may be the only one focused on this side of the veil in this experience, right? You might be the only one.
And there's an advantage in that.
Right. And you might be the only one thinking about the needs of the dying person here and now and how they want to do this. And I think that positions us in those families to be somebody incredibly crucial during this experience.
Well, it's sure an opening, isn't it, to another possibility. And I understand the need for ritual that other people have that's rooted in their religious tradition and last rites and all that. Great, fabulous, let's do it. And I have no argument with any of those things. I mean, it's like, okay, do your thing if that provides comfort and meaning and it's part of your history and culture. Okay, great, perfect. But we have an opportunity to show up in a truly unique way, which is really about, as you say, this side of this thing. And how do you want to do this? Can you relax into death, which is such an interesting possibility.
Maybe you can talk. I'm a practical thinker. I'm a person who I've never really connected a lot to ritual, and so the creation of rituals is appealing to me. But I'm not sure I would know where to start. Other than so maybe you can give me a good starting point for creating my own ritual.
Well, it's going to be idiosyncratic if it's going to work. Make it your own.
Okay.
It has to reflect something about you. And so I think it's about this thing about relaxing into the possibility. Well, how would I want to do this? I mean, people don't even ask themselves that question. How do I want to do this death thing? I have someone who's dying or I'm dying myself. How do I want to do it? What do I want to bring with this? And I all thought about my own death, and I'm really okay with death, my own. I don't really like any of the people that I love to go, but I'm pretty okay with mine. Well, how do I want to do it? That's an interesting question. Well, if I get to contemplate that, that's interesting. Well, what are the rituals? What are the moments? And for me, they're quiet. They're just about being with people in a kind of quality of experience, a quality of connection. Kind of relax into that. And if you have the luxury of contemplating how you want to do this, you can begin to shape that experience a little bit. Other times, death comes very suddenly. And in my own life, death has come with such violence and aggression, and in the form of murder and in the form of sudden accidents, whether it's an explosion or a mine caving in or an automobile accident or whatever. It's come so suddenly sometimes, and I was not prepared for those.
Right.
And when death accumulates and you haven't had a chance to work it through, it builds. You don't really finish with the last one before the next one comes. And I used to think it was unusual when people they loved murdered. I'm astounded how common it is, which blows my mind.
Huh.
And so as I've sat with people who've dealt with murder and these violent deaths and these unsettling ones, and to be able to sit with it and to process it so that things don't endlessly accumulate, and they have their own gravity anyway, especially these dark deaths, if you will. So how do you want to start to clear that? And for me, fire was always involved. I got to have fire. I'm a burning man. When they burn the man, my favorite pagan ritual is after that man falls to run in circles around the biggest fire I've ever seen, 10,000 strong, running in a group of people around the biggest fire I've ever seen.
Oh, I love it.
That was ecstasy for me. And there was something purging for me. And you just don't get to do that very often. But I've had my own burns in the backyard after a period of just real profound grief when my body had become numb from too much death and too much struggle. And so I made up my own ritual, which was to build my own fire in the backyard and to invite the people that I love to it to put an intention into that fire, and they wrote things and they put it into it, and then we played my favorite music. There was a lot of Hendrix. There was some Talking Heads. Burning Down the House was nice in that mix. It's interesting. Music, fire, companionship was those were the elements for me. And I've had other people who've either used fire or water. When my sister died and her daughter, we went up to the Firehole River, which we had swam in. So it was a place of common connection, right? The Firehole River in Yellowstone is a swimming hole there. And snowy day, June 13th. And the ritual was all of us met from across the country in Yellowstone, where my cousin had a log cabin hotel. And then we drove in, and it's snowing. And he said, you need to go in now because they're going to close the road. So we make our way into the fire hole, and it's gently snowing. We park our cars, and we walk down to the swimming hole. And we put their ashes into the fire hole. And we don't say anything. There's all of us there. And my mother, and the snow's falling, and I'm not kidding you. This falcon drops out of the treetops, skims a foot above the water across the ashes of my sister and her daughter, and disappears. And I look at my atheist brother, and I just shrug like, oh, maybe we got this wrong. This is too magical. But that was an extraordinary ritual, and there was something so completing about that I was going, okay, there's completion. We did this well, and that's where she wanted to be. And the awfulness of those events and those deaths seemed transformed in the ritual of all of us being together, sharing meals, driving out there for that thing, and having this experience on the river. So for me, water, fire is essential for my own rituals. I have a tendency to include them. If you relax, you get to develop your own style. If you don't want rituals, fine. But I think you miss something without ritual. That's why we have it. We've probably been doing rituals since we started burying our dead.
Yeah. 13th. I mean, that's a ritual in and of itself.
Yeah, you could just leave them out, and that can be a ritual too, of course. Some Native Americans do that. But it's like, wow, this matters. And if you don't want your deaths to stack up and affect your nervous system, you got to work this out in some way. And whatever that looks like for you, great. But if you don't think about it, then you have no way of processing. And people can go to therapy and they can talk about death, and I think it's a great idea. You can talk with friends, and if you can relax enough with each other, maybe that's part of it. So I think atheists can be a little bit alone in their grieving if they don't have some form of ritual to process it. So,
I think that's a brilliant thing to point out. Don't be alone.
Don't be alone. It's too hard.
Yeah. You don't need to do that.
Well, it's funny. I didn't expect the conversation to take this particular turn into the ritual idea, but
oh, good. We've sent it in another direction. We're on pay dirt now.
So when we start recording, we'll talk about something else. But,
excellent idea.
But I think it's really fascinating because I think a lot of us, when we leave whatever we came out of, we throw everything out, including ritual, with it. And a lot of us, I think a lot of atheists are loath to dip a toe back into it.
Oh, yeah. But, it's just something to be avoided, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
it has a smack of religiosity to it. Right. It feels it can, at least for me, sometimes feel like I'm sort of dipping my toes back into tainted water.
Yeah.
But it's not that. I mean, what you're talking about is something very different because it's self-created. It's me crafting something to heal myself.
There you go. And to me, that's the artfulness of it. You're creating, it's not imposed on you by culture or others. It's something that you can do in an improvisational way, but it comes from you. And, previously when we've talked about how to live our lives, whether it was on the other podcast or this one. What was that other podcast?
Thank God I'm Atheist?
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I remember that one.
It's interesting.
Is that still on the air?
we do it on occasion.
It's outstanding.
Oh, yeah, it's a
I'm
nice
so
show.
glad. It's this piece of differentiating yourself, being able to create for yourself what truly matters to you. And ritual is one of the cool ways to do it. And I mean, as a 12-year-old boy hanging out with my bros, we invented shit. I mean, it's, you put a group of 12-year-old boys together and pretty soon they've invented ritual. Well, that ain't religious.
Right.
Well, where does that come from? There's something really foundational in us. We thrive in some kind of ritual. Why not invent your own? Why not really own the impulse in the process? Ritual exists because it works. What's yours going to be like? You can have a ritual of sitting alone and drinking bourbon if you want. I like it personally, but you won't have the bang for your buck of something that's communal typically. And I've grieved alone and I've grieved with others. I like them both. But if you don't have both, you get isolated. And it's hard to heal in isolation. We tend to heal together.
Well, maybe don't call it ritual. Call it personal culture. Call it family tradition. Whatever you have to call it. But I think you're right. I think your experience at the river in Yellowstone is that was something you did communally, and you kind of made it up on the spot.
It was totally made up. It's what I loved about it. It was like when my sister's dying, I said to her, "How do you want to do this? Really, how would you like to complete this? Where do you want us to put your ashes?" Because she decided she wanted to be cremated, and our family tends to do that. And it was like, well, I'm not sure. I said, well, what place do you love in this planet? And she'd lived in Jackson Hole for a time, and we talked, and finally we said, well, the fire hole. It's where we swam. And that was just right. It's a place I've been every season of the year, and that completion was made. And by the way, I don't know what there is about ritual, but I swear magical shit happens. And I hate to talk about magic too much as a skeptic, but there was nobody at the fire hole that day. Huh. It's June 13th, and there's a snowstorm. We were the only ones there because they shut the road down. I have never been at the fire hole, whether on a snowmobile or an automobile, and had it to myself. And that day it was alone, and that fucking bird showed up. And it's like, well, I can't really explain it. Maybe there's more to this experience than I know. I don't really know about that stuff. But I can rely on the world to show up in unique and absolutely promising ways, because it does. And when you get a community of people together, they have different impulses and different events occur. And I don't really believe that the bird dropped out of the sky for us. But on the other hand, perfection.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to go down this road, what at least appears to be magical or spiritual, whatever that is, might just avail itself. And why not play in that domain? Because it's fun, it's healing, it's restorative, it's communal. If you can develop a ritual that combines those things, I think your odds of not stacking your deaths up improves. because when they accumulate unprocessed, you live in a kind of pain that creates anhedonia. I love that word. It's the diminished ability to experience pleasure in this world.
Oh, wow.
Anhedonia. It's a form of depression where you don't feel your own skin. And that's too much to bear. That is too much. And
yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, I say fuck that.
That shit sucks.
And it's unnecessary.
Like the whole, like, if there's one thing that we as atheists can sort of believe, and and Mark and I say this at the beginning of every podcast, you get one life that that we know about.
Yes.
There's no reason. You got to do everything you can to live it as joyfully as possible.
Yeah, what about pleasure? What about delight? What about joy,
So if you got to move through a bunch of grief to get to that point, move through it as skillfully and as quickly as you can.
Yeah, how do you want to do it?
And also, your death is something that you, if depending on circumstances, is something you can kind of own, and something that you can, with your tribe, that you can participate in a different way than maybe you were trained, right?
Yeah, absolutely, but only if you give it some thought. If you
and you talk to people about it, and you allow yourself to move past the fear of it, which I think we all have to some degree.
Or even just live in the fear of it. Like, be okay with the fear of it. Talk about that.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people, I had a man say, I don't want to be in the ground. And I said, do you think you're in the ground when you die? And this is a grown man, one of the brightest men that I'm going to meet, and he says, oh. Because he had experiences in his life of putting people he loved in the ground. He said, I don't want to go in the ground. I ain't going in the ground. In fact, he'd made a commitment never to die because of traumatic death early on. And I said, have you ever been with a dead person? And he said, not in their presence. I said, they're so seriously dead. I said, it's really weird. It's like my car. When I get out of the car, there's nobody in the car. Do you think you're in the ground? And he went, oh my God, no. And so for him, processing the fear of eternally being in the ground was an unprocessed fear of his. And so to be able to speak of it was to say, oh, I won't be in the ground. Whatever I am, if there's an afterlife, I'm clearly not spending it in the ground.
Right.
And if there isn't, then what does that mean?
Huh.
Well, whatever animates me is not in the ground.
Yeah.
And it's such a strange thing to be able to finally process. So to be able to talk about it and not be in isolation and live in these absolutely delusional fears is freedom from suffering.
Well, I think that is a beautiful place for us to leave this conversation.
Let's let it die here.
I thought we were just getting started.
We're going to kill it.
All right.
It's dead now.
Put that one to death.
We'll start a ritual about it. Paige, thanks so much for coming back and joining us on the show again.
It's fun. Always fun to be with you guys.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's move on, Mark.
Let's move on, baby. Well, friends, that's it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or you're always welcome to leave us a voicemail at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. You can also look for us on Twitter if you want to talk to us there at howtoheretic.
Yeah, if you're into the tweeting. Hey, thanks again to all of our beautiful patrons. You're the wind beneath our wings.
Indeed. And you can become a patron too. If you like, just go to howtoheretic.com and click on the Patreon link and have your mom's credit card standing by.
Indeed.
We also want to thank Cody Layton for editing the show.
And thank you, dear friends, for tuning in.
Yes, indeed. Bye-bye.
Bye.